There is hope in football. With Dembele winning the Ballon d'Or now, I think it's fair to say that there is hope in football. But it is a little bit hypocritical because you look at what Dembele did for PSG last season. It's the same thing Vinicius Jr. did for Real Madrid 2 seasons ago. Dembele didn't do that well in his international team. Same with Vinicius. Though France did go a little bit far, they didn't really do that well. And he wasn't really the star man in his international team. And same thing with Vinicius. And I think a lot of people were saying the international performances were going to play a part in Dembele winning the Ballon d'Or, and I didn't really think that was going to be the case. I know people are going to say Euros and Copa America is more important than the Nations League and all that. It's still international competitions. I think if Spain won the Nations League, Lamine Yamal probably wins this Ballon d'Or, if I'm being very honest with you. Especially coming up against Cristiano Ronaldo. I think if Spain won the Nations League, we would have been seeing Lamine Yamal lift this Ballon d'Or. So I don't think the Nations League was a competition that was ignored. I think it was very, very important. I think when France got knocked out and Spain got to the finals, I was actually thinking if Spain wins this, I think Lamine Yamal takes the Ballon d'Or because they might say he did well in his international team, although the Nations League is not necessarily in the same frame as a Euros, Copa America, and maybe even an AFCON to a certain extent. But I think, deserved winner Dembele, the PSG team, looking at this being their first time. The funny thing here is there is a whole lot of contradictions here that people are probably going to use to defend Dembele winning this Ballon d'Or. Again, this is not me trying to say he doesn't deserve it, but I'm trying to look at previous years where players did very, very well for their teams and they weren't involved in a Ballon d'Or conversation, or they didn't win the Ballon d'Or because of whatever reasons. Erling Haaland, his first season for Manchester City, plays a very big role in winning them their first Champions League, breaks records in his first season, won a treble in his first season. Same thing with Dembele. Doesn't necessarily do well in his national team. I don't think Norway even qualified for the World Cup. And then Messi does well in one competition, which is the World Cup, wins the World Cup, and is given the Ballon d'Or. And you kind of look at it and think, there are disparities going on. And I do hope, I know it's not going to be the case. I think if Lamine Yamal has a good season this year and Barcelona win the Champions League, I think Lamine Yamal takes it. To be very honest with you, if Barca do well this season, Lamine Yamal, does averagely well this season and makes it to the Champions League final and wins the Champions League, I think they're just going to give it to Lamine Yamal based on sentiment. And that's one thing I have come to realize with the award ceremony, especially with a glamorous occasion like the Ballon d'Or. The voting is done based on sentiment. The voting is not done based on actual ability, actual accomplishment, and actually sitting down to think, what has this player achieved compared to this player? I think it's done based on sentiment. They're trying to write a story, stuff like that. Because again, I think if Spain won the Nations League, Lamine Yamal probably takes the Ballon d'Or this evening. So it's honestly good to see a player that actually deserves to win the Ballon d'Or actually win it. Because over the years, we've seen Lewandowski, we've seen Vinicius Jr., we've seen Erling Haaland, these players, missing out on individual awards like this just because of maybe they're not liked in the media. Maybe the media or the fans or the people who vote prefer a particular player to that player. So these are all things I hope, and I don't think it's gonna change. I think this is gonna be a one-time thing, just like with Benzema's Ballon d'Or. Benzema's Ballon d'Or was so it happened so I don't know how to explain Benzema's Ballon d'Or. It was so deserved, right? That if he didn't win it, it was gonna be something that people were gonna talk about. Like it was so deserved. Like he looked like the standout player that if he didn't win it, it was going to be, something that people were going to talk about. And I think unless the World Cup is next year, whoever wins the World Cup, if it's a popular player, you're definitely whoever wins the World Cup is going to win the Ballon d'Or next year. Think if you're a player, if you're Lamine Yamal and you want, if maybe I'm in Lamine Yamal's entourage and I'm thinking I'm maybe advising him on what to do to win the Ballon d'Or next year, just win the World Cup. Just win the World Cup with Spain. He's going to do well in Barcelona regardless. Just win the World Cup with Spain and the Ballon d'Or is yours. Definitely. It doesn't matter if you don't win. Barca could go trophyless next season. That's this season. They could go trophyless this season. If Spain win the World Cup, they're giving the Ballon d'Or to Lamine Yamal. And it's unfortunate that that's how the voting system works. That's how the individual awards for stuff like this work. Because look at the official Ballon d'Or ranking. Raphina being fit doesn't make any sort of sense. I think in that Barcelona side, Rafinha was more impactful than Lamine Yamal in their run to all the competitions that they won, all the trophies that they won. I think Rafinha was very, very pivotal in that run. And to see players like Vitinha, I'm not saying Vitinha didn't play well, but to see players like Vitinha, to see players like even Mohamed Salah to a certain extent over Rafinha is a little bit weird because you're looking at it and thinking, are you trying to tell me Vitinha had a better season than Rafinha? You say maybe Vitinha won more trophies. What, two more trophies than Rafinha? A Champions League and a Nations League? We're not adding the Nations League, are we? We're not adding the Nations League. Because if you're adding the Nations League, then maybe we put in more Portuguese players. Maybe we put in a Cristiano Ronaldo because he played very well for Portugal in the um, Nations League. But I don't think they're adding the Nations League. So to see that going on, Rafinha fit. I was thinking the top three was going to be Dembele, Yamal, and Rafinha. So to see Rafinha fit in a Ballon d'Or, debate is a little bit weird based on what he did last season. And again, adds to my point of I don't think the voting is done fairly. It's done based on sentiment. Lamine Yamal, probably the youngest player to be second in a Ballon d'Or list. There's probably going to be a record out there like that. They would have preferred if Yamal won it. To be very honest with you, I think not football fans, a lot of people trying to write a story would have preferred if Lamine Yamal won the Ballon d'Or over Dembele. So I think that's something you definitely have to be looking at next season. This season Ballon d'Or race looking interesting. I mean, at the moment, I think if I had to give a guess to who's gonna win it this season, I think Mbappe is definitely leading the race. I think maybe Erling Haaland, he's doing well this season, definitely coming in second. I think Harry Kane. I think Harry Kane in Bayern Munich is definitely doing well. But I think the standout player this season would be Mbappe. I think Mbappe is definitely the standout player. But we'll have to see as the season goes. Definitely have a lot more football to go through. And yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section as usual. Any feedback from you guys would be greatly appreciated.